There we go. I'll call the meeting to order. Selectman Tammy Ham is joining us by Zoom, obviously. I assume everybody here has signed in on the sheet over there. So the purpose of at least the first part of tonight's meeting is a hearing on a bond article from a petitioned warrant article that the selectmen received at the very end of our budget process. This is something we weren't aware of or were considering until at the last minute. But with that being said, it was not known that this land was up for sale until wasn't public knowledge until 2 days after we got the petition. So someone knew about it ahead of time and got the petitioned article moving. So I just want to go over some of the facts. First of all, I'm assuming most people in this room are familiar with where the property is and what it entails. But for those of you who don't, these aren't out, are they? But there's tax maps available that show that this is up on Route 3. There's a small section of land, 0.62 acres with 138 feet of frontage along Route 3. Up across from Linwood Auto and just south of Pemmy Motor Court. On that land is one end of the bridge that's used to access the second parcel, which is on the other side of the river and consists of 322 acres. That is the former site of the Campus World property, as people know it, and for years of the campground. Back in the 80s, Bradgate bought it and put in some water and sewer infrastructure on the east side of the river to start their development, and they went bankrupt and the project never got finished. So the water and sewer infrastructure that's in there has been in there since the mid-80s, and I don't know the exact year, but either way, it's old. And it does not cross the river, it does not connect to the active water and active sewer on the west side of the river along Route 3. So the town is well aware that the bridge that is there right now is not adequate for vehicle use for any sort of development over there. We know that there's no water and sewer to the 320 acre side of that property. And that any water and sewer would have to cross the river. There have been some roadways roughed in back during the Bradgate ownership era of that property, but nothing that I would consider extensive. But the old road network from the old Campus World property is still existing, although not, I would consider drivable. But the main snowmobile trail, Corridor 11, runs down through that property along much of what was the old Campus World Road. And that is certainly snowmobileable. The snowmobile grooming machine goes over it, mountain bikes go over it. So it's a fairly level, drivable-ish road. Once the town received the petition warrant article, we negotiated a intent to purchase agreement that is conditioned on a vote at the town meeting next month. So if the vote fails, basically the trust that owns it, the Clark family, agreed to not sell that land to anyone between the date of our agreement and the day after town meeting. The day after town meeting, we have to let them know, did the vote pass, did it not pass? And then if it did, we would then negotiate a purchase and sales agreement that's more typical of a real estate transaction. This is really an agreement by the Clarks to just not sell it to anyone until the town goes through this vote town meeting process. We do know that the offer submitted by the town in our intent to purchase was not the best offer the Clarks received. But they have a desire to see this go to the town and be developed and used in a positive way towards the town than just the highest bidding developer maybe coming in and doing whatever they want. So we appreciate that they gave us these few weeks to let the townspeople know what's going on and decide, you know, do we want to get into this or do we not? So the biggest question that we've been asked is, what's the plan for this? Everyone has a plan. Again, this came in a petitioned article just a few weeks ago. And I guess our plan is more of a plan for the process, not a plan for the land. We can't tell you how many condos are going here and how many apartments are going here and who's going to own what. I don't know. Okay. And if that bothers people, and that's a stumbling block, it is what it is. What we have done is talked about the process going forward, that the town is not looking to be the developer. Okay, we make that clear. We're not looking to be the developer. We're not looking to be a landlord. We're not looking to buy a bridge or have a bridge built. Okay, we're looking to control what goes on there and guide it towards what's best for this town, which in our opinion, but we will be opening, you know, some public input sessions regarding this. Our opinion is that it's not a hotel, it's not high-end single family, you know, $800,000 houses. It's not a whole bunch of condos that are going to be Airbnb'd out. It could be that someone else buys it without the town. We think the best use of that property is some step towards providing a community-based housing. You know, one of the things about Lincoln is that we have lost a real sense of community because many of our housing stock is being used by out-of-state people for second homes or on short-term basis. You know, they're up here for the weekend and then they leave. Leaving, you know, our school teachers, our police officers, our you know, middle management from many of the businesses in town. They can afford a place to live. They just can't find one. And you know, they're not going to be able to buy a $800,000 home or a $600,000 condo. We thought this would really provide Lincoln with a place to put housing stock for local people. But again, our plan is not to develop that. Our plan is to work with some partners who would then develop it. Like, again, I know that there are multiple offers in on this land. Obviously, there's people who want to buy this to do some development up there. We could be working with some of them to say, okay, we like your idea. This is a, you know, 10 acres is what you need to do whatever project you want, to 20 acres or whatever, and divide it up, maybe have multiple projects going on by multiple developers. And it could be single family houses, it could be duplexes, it could be single family houses, but in a cluster style rather than on their own individual lots. It could be apartments, it could be employee owned housing. It could be any type of housing, but again, our goal would be for it to be for people who are looking to live here, not stay for the weekend. And the plan would be to seek out those developers in an open process without, you know, being, and there'll always be accusations, but without giving any special offers to a certain developer or anything like that. We're going to have people come in, talk to us. What do you think should be done with the land from our townspeople, and then finding developers who would do some of those things. Some of them might be for-profit developers who are going to put in and make, you know, put in a project to make money at it. Some of them might be from a nonprofit, like Ahead, who had some ideas for things in town, but never got a location to do it. this might be a location where we go with ahead. The town is not looking to be the landlord either. Now, one of the things that might come up is if there's a nonprofit, it could be ahead, it could be one of other groups that are available. Or it could be a private developer who's looking to do something using federal grant money, where the town ownership of the land is a part of that, getting that grant. We may be a landlord insofar as leasing the land to a developer. But as far as the town owning some apartments and collecting rents every month and then subsidizing those rents if they don't pay, that's not what we're looking at. And I know there's lots of stories and scare things going around on social media about that, but you know, that's a good way to scare people about a project, but it's not valid. There's several things that I think that the town benefits from doing this. One is that the town can control the types of development out there. Again, we said we don't want hotels, we don't want Airbnbs, whatever. We can also control the pace of it. We have some major construction going on in this town. It's rapidly expanding, and much of that is with projects that have already been approved, like South Peak. Back in 2007, I think was the approval date of that. And they're just now going gun ho on that now. We can control the pace of this. Like we might say, okay, we want this, whatever, this, 30 unit single family thing to go first. Or we may say, okay, we want this apartment complex to go first, and HED's ready to do it, or some other nonprofit. We can control the pace of the development up there as opposed to reacting to what other developers do. And then we also get to choose the mix of housing that's up there. I don't want to see it personally, and again, if townspeople say they do, I'm fine with it, but I personally don't want to see this to be like all employee housing. Like Loonville's a apartment complex, and then the Woodstock Station has one, and Clark's Trading Post has one, and that could be a portion of it, but I don't want to see that. In the same way, I don't want to see it all single family housing, each on their own lot. I think that should be a part of it, but again, not all. I think the town can guide the mix of that, and I think that comes through input from townspeople. Again, it's going to be an open process. We haven't discussed this because we haven't had any public board meetings to discuss it at. But are we going to form a housing input committee to give the board some input on what they think should or should not be done there? Then the other thing is, people have been asking about, have we done engineering studies? Do we know how much it's going to cost to build a bridge? Do we know how much it's going to cost to put water and sewer across the river? No. The answer to all those questions is no. What we do have is a soil map that does tell us the types of soil up there and the topography to show what areas of that project could be buildable for different types of things. And what we also have are developers who see enough value in that land that they've put in offers at or above the value that the town has put in. And those are some of the partners we might want to work with to put in a bridge, or to have them put in a bridge. So in other words, if you want to develop 40 units on this section of the land, part of that is going to be building a bridge or extending water and sewer over there. It doesn't have to be the town doing all of this stuff as much as partnering and guiding. And that's the process we're looking at. So that's our plan. If you want to consider that a plan. Another thing is part of the land is in what we call current use. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a change or a differential in how land is taxed. Because one of the comments was, okay, we're going to take this off the tax rolls, which during the town's ownership, we are going to take this off the tax rolls. But then as we parcel out different pieces, it'll go back on the tax rolls. Obviously at a higher value once utilities and roadways are put in, and then even more so when building structures are put in. But about half of that land is in current use, which means that it's not taxed the same as non-current use land. Current use means that land is open land, woodland, and it gets taxed at a highly reduced rate, like ridiculously low. So the taxes that they're paying on the land right now is between $3,000 and $4,000. And obviously the town will lose that $3,000, whatever, $4,000 worth of income during our ownership. But then when it goes back on, it's going to get taxed at full rate. Unless the town decides to keep some of that land, which again, with guidance and input from townspeople, we may. And part of that would be, as I said, the snowmobile trail runs north to south across that whole property. A developer can go in there. There's no like easement that goes with the property. It's just the landowner letting snowmobiles cross their property. Any new owner can go in there and say, no, we're gonna, shut the trail off. That's gonna be the new road. You can't drive on our property. And the town is gonna be faced with either finding an alternative route, which will be difficult. It'll either have to go over the river somewhere north of that property and make its way on the west side of Route 3 somehow. Or it would have to go on the east side of that property, which means up over the hill behind First Legend. Like that's just not going to happen. If the town owns the land, we can keep that snowmobile trail, or more probable, we can relocate it. And we can move it so that it doesn't interfere with development, but it still allows that access. And again, that access is pretty important, I think, to the town. It's become quite a snowmobile hub. I live next to the snowmobile main parking lot, and I know this winter hasn't been great for it, but it brings a lot of activity to the town. So I think that's another one of the benefits. And we also have seen the question and been asked, what about, is this all going to be subsidized housing? And there's nothing in our plans that says we're going to do subsidized housing. Now, if a developer comes in and has some grant money and wants to do some subsidized housing, and it's subsidized by anyone other than the town of Lincoln, we'll be open to listening to that. But if you think that the town is going to get into subsidizing personal residences rent for apartments that are on that property, that's not the case. Okay, that's another, just no, that's not going to happen. So I think that's important to put out there. That's kind of my summary. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think OJ has made a very, very valid points. I was a housing director, 2,000 units of public housing in Massachusetts, a budget of $40 million a year. I don't believe that the town should be in ownership of housing. I believe that if you, the taxpayers, pass this referendum, this budget motion, that we should partner with a developer or a number of developers to do the right thing by this property. I mean, it's 300 acres. Do we know what's there? No. I've talked with people that built the bridge, that somebody called me from North Carolina, somebody from South Carolina. Both were active in the development of that property originally for Campus World. And different types of soil up there, different conditions up there, rock walls up there that don't meet today's standards. I mean, all of that. So it's $4 million is the tip of the iceberg. Believe me, it's the tip of the iceberg. I'm a taxpayer like you are. I don't want to see my taxes go up at the expense of something that we can't control. If it's passed, I personally would say that we should put some restrictive covenants on that property so that we know what's going on, and then sell it or partner off with a developer as the community, and by us, the select board. Once we sell it off, with these covenants, with these recorded restrictions, then it would have to be followed, otherwise they'd be in default. I, like OJ, strongly believe, or at least, I won't say dictate, bad word. I would say that they suggest what we put on that property, where we put it on that property, within reason. Can we follow every whim, every request? Absolutely not. I'm getting calls daily, not DALY, DAILY, that from folks that, you know, say, I'm in favor of it, I'm against it, and here's the reasons why. So consequently, you know, you, the taxpayer, you, the voter, have the ultimate say in this, not us three and Karina sitting here. So, you know, it's up to you to be heard, your voice to be heard. I strongly believe that input from the public is so important, and accurate information is important. I'm getting calls, oh, we heard this, it's not true, not true. So, you know, I think the dialogue that we open up to get input from the public is so important. I'm sure there'll be more dialogue at town meeting, but I'm here to listen. I'm here to get input. I've only lived in the town currently now, I think, for 22 years. Some of you have lived in there for 40, 50, maybe 60. And you know the history better than I. I'm here to learn. 70, Joe, did you say?
76.
Okay, 76. So some of you have lived here 76 years. So, you know, I'm here to learn. Your families grew up here. Again, I still want to learn. I can learn. I'm not older, but I can't learn. So your voices be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tammy, did you want to add anything before we have public input?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so the purpose of a hearing is kind of twofold. One is to learn about what's going on, and we've sort of presented that here. And then the second part is to hear from the public, you know, whether it's questions you have or your opinions to share. And with that, I'll open up public comment. Joe.
This information. Campus World site was bought off Ernie Sonia, $1 million. Bradgate owns, which is a subsidiary at the time, was part of Temposi. They put close to $1 million infrastructure in the road, water, sewer. There's water lines and sewer lines up there that are not connected or anything. There's also 4 to 5 wells on top of the mountain that have been drilled. Nobody's even checked them to see how potable the water is. So that's one option you can take a look into. There's also another 50-acre tract just south of that, which is landlocked. Belongs to Clark. Another Clark, not these people, these Clark, but another one. And they're probably able to petition to get a right of way through the other property to get to the main road, which they have legal right to do under state law. But the water line was sort of brought right down to the river. The wells put in by under Bradgate. You know, they foreclosed. 3 people bought it, which is 2 of them are still, 2 of the families still active in it, trying to sell it. But Draghi put over $500 to $1 million of infrastructure in it. I think it was Delta Avery to put it in. And the roads are put in. There's also, like I said, 4 to 5 wells up top of the mountain that could be tested for water. I just bought another water tank in the future. But just keep in mind, another 50-acre tract just below it, which I'm sure they will petition to get access to the campus world to the new bridge put in. Also, you can get a bridge put in by the state. You have a half-mile road across the river, paved and tarred. You get federal money, state money to put that bridge in. The town is the minimal portion of it. Like Loon Mountain Bridge is put in that way, if you recall. I don't know if you were here then. Loon Mountain Bridge is put in with taxpayer money. Loon Mountain has the money to put in. So they petitioned the town, we put a half-mile road in. They got funding from the state and the government. But Loon Mountain paid the town's portion of the bonding to cover the bridge, but the town didn't have any expenses put into it. I don't know if you know about that either.
Did not.
There's a lot of other stuff too. There's also a company, you go down and Concord. Many ways you can get housing put in, and a separate corporation that will run the infrastructure, which I presented to the board, and it's like 15 years ago, but nobody wanted to listen to the time. In other words, you let a guy put in a condo, he can put in, you're allowed 4, you're allowed to put in 5 or 6. 2 of those we put in, same exact thing outside. The inside we built in layer, not inferior, but less expensive product. So people work for the town or work in the area can buy the condo outside, and it's identical, inside is different. But these people go to sell, they can't go sell for an exorbitant amount to a condo developer. I mean, a condo buyer, like 400,000 or 500,000, give you in a certain price range. To what they sold it for, with a percentage of markup every year to it, they're locked into that, can't be sold for an exorbitant amount. So the people in town can't be bought out of their places, sold to somebody from out of town. There's a lot of these programs together in Concord, which have, I think Sam Green is one of the ones, remember Sam Green? She was the North County Council. I was met a couple of times with her, different functions down in Concord. So the OSP, what do they call it now, Office of State Planning, where they have a bunch of these programs in, which would be beneficial. I could go on for about 4 hours.
Well, thank you, no, but you brought up a good point, is that, something like the bridge. When I say the town's not gonna do it, a developer is. It actually might be more of the case that you just said, where the town does the project because we can get state or federal money. But the portion that isn't, that the town is responsible for, if it's a match grant, would come from the developer. So it might be done through the town, to make use of the grant money that's available. But it really wouldn't be town money, it would be getting it from a developer, and then we'd pay the bills with that money. So that's a good point, which you said how Loon's original bridge was.
See, this information most people in town don't know. But 5 years ago, a ski area company from out west, I'm not gonna mention their name, came in, they approached them, but taking 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 20 acres up top and the upper hill way out. They would put the bridge in, put the road in, go into the mountain. They want to put a high-end development up there. I mean, really high-end, not just condos and stuff. After sometime later on, I can tell you the name of the company. I'm not gonna do it here because it's not my volition to do so. They turned it down at the time because COVID hit and everything went. It's a longer story than that. This is short enough.
All right, well, thank you. Yep, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to read something. This is an email that I received yesterday. Bradgate was the developer of Campus World property. They hired a drilling company to try and find water on the site. We cut a road to within 200 feet of the top of the ridge, Little Coolidge, and pulled a drilling rig up there with a D6 bulldozer. Unsuccessful in finding any quantity of water for development.
3 wells, they would pumps in right now. You can go up and check them anytime. You
No,
can
I'm
drive right up
just
and check.
saying, this came yesterday.
I know what I'm saying. This is after the company went in. And I was doing work with Bradgate at the time. Which is Andy Garland, I believe, was running the corporation for this area development. After they finished Alpine. From Alpine, they went up there. We're going to go up there. There's a lot of things we can look into, still discuss. And the further in down below, it's still the old Boise Brook Reservoir of infrastructure. 2 yards down the road. Heading east towards the Franconia Notch. Northeast of Franconia Notch. The old reservoir is still up there. It's been filled in, but the infrastructure is still there. Some way you might be able to tie it some together and get more water, another source of water. Even if it's only 500,000 gallons a day, that's still 500,000 more you'd have if you didn't have it. To increase balancing the area from just tanks up here, you'd have another big tank up Route 3 in the future. We draw off the Boise Brook, fill that up, and you have equalization. It's more stable for fire and water distribution to the town.
All right, well, thank you. Who else? Questions, comments? Tammy?
Yes, you know me, I'm not for the development in the area, but I understand it has to get with the times. I would just like, if the town did get okay to purchase this, that they would have a minimum lot size, not like the proposed Mansion Hill of maybe 1/3 of an acre, but maybe have stipulations that it has to be on minimum of an acre with tree buffers, so. This part of Lincoln isn't looking like slope side up to Blue Mountain, but have it an individual home community kind of thing, where it's individualized, not just slammed in like a business. Now it's just leave some naturalness there, you know, and I know we deal with a lot of national forests, but Berlin and Gorham making a killing with the art trails. And I know right now we've had a problem with the snow for the winter for snowmobiles, but if the town did have the land and they did maintain keeping the corridors for snowmobile trails, I don't know where the cutoffs are for national forest versus town, state property, but maybe something could be worked out so that like up to Fresalones where they have the touring with the snowmobile, maybe you could bring in some more income to the town and the businesses, maybe give Indian Head and places like that business year round, for people staying up to that end, not just this section of town. But I just feel everything's just getting clustered around here. You need to have, I mean, my daughter, if she stays in this town and she has kids, if she has kids, I would like them to have some land that they can just walk in. As it is now, I mean, I grew up knowing the Clarks. My dad owned what's now Arnold's area. Anyways, I've ridden my horses. I've gone where Wolfman goes, up along the train tracks, all the way up to your old hotel, up to the Flume and back down, walking with dogs. Kids, I've been short of 33 years with the licensed daycare, most of it licensed. You know, we ventured, we didn't just stay in a house in a fenced in backyard. And there's nothing for our kids to do here with that, unless it's the cank rack or the school ball fields and stuff. And I know you guys propose in this area down in town, but for the kids that live here year round, let them get on a damn dirt bike and go up through there. Let them have a mountain bike like you like to do. Go up through there, maintain some naturalness here. You know, I mean, I love the Clark family and I wish they weren't gonna get rid of this property, but that's their choice. But just please don't continue to let this town look like Slopeside of Little Mountain or Lincoln Station. It's just, it's overkill. Let's keep some natural beauty. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online want to say something? So.
Hey,
Oh,
can you
hold
hear
on.
me?
Yep, but hold on, I just called on, okay, go ahead, online, phone 223, go ahead.
No, hey, it's Kristen Brophy. How are ya?
Oh, hey, Kristen.
Hello. I just want to kind of chime in here as, you know, a resident who's been here for the better part of 20 years, who has had 3 children go through well, 2 are currently in Linwood, 1 has gone from kindergarten and graduated. We rent. We have rented since we have lived here. I love this area. That is why we moved up here. My parents moved up here 25 years ago. This is our last chance as a town to make sure that there are properties that are going to developers that are able to provide housing for local working families. If this does not pass, that land will go to anyone and anything will go in there. Yes, I want my kids to dirt bike. There also has to be kids in town to be able to dirt bike. And we can't have kids in town if we don't have housing for families. There are less and less children entering the school system every year because there is no place for these families to go, and they keep leaving. My lease is up in 2 years. If my landlord decides to sell, I'm also out of a job because I am town clerk and I have to legally live here. And I love it here. And I love my job. And the last thing I want to do is have to move because working families in this area have no place to stay. This is literally it. This is our last chance. The selectmen for years have been trying to come up with ideas to be able to provide the locals with housing. And every time it gets shot down, they get outbid. This is it. So I feel like if you want to allow the town to continue to be a local community and not another Waterville, then passing this is the only way that's going to happen. And I truly believe that. And I'm sorry to be so passionate about it, but I love this town. And I love my kids loving their school and loving their friends. And it breaks my heart to see it go away so quickly. And I want this to pass, not just for my family, but for the future of the school, for the future of our first responders that won't have to live 20 miles away. These are things that every taxpayer has to think about, because those things will go away if this is not passed, because this is realistically the town's last option. So thank you guys, select board, for your dedication year after year after year after year to try to help out locals. And I hope that the word spreads about this and we have enough people to show up in person to pass this, because I don't want the 10 unhappy people to be the only ones that show up. We need people who really want this for our community. So thank you guys for everything you do, and go warrant article. Yay.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Kristen. All right, Paul, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just had two questions. First of all, is it a unanimous support of the board? All three board members are supporting this article? Is
Correct,
that my understanding?
correct.
And I was also wondering, Jack, could you touch on a little bit about the meetings you were having with developers and business people about trying to purchase land and what happened to that, where it went?
Well, it wasn't developers, it was the business people in town. I've got all the notes here. 2022 from October and November. What I did, because I was listening to the folks in town talking about affordability and workforce housing, was specifically, it was titled workforce housing. Was convened meeting in this room. We had people from town that owned businesses that represented 2,300 employees. Moon Mountain 900, the Mountain Club, Alex Ray from the Common Man, who's developed housing, by the way, Scott Rice from Woodstock Station, Dave Rogers, Herman Boydie from Burger King, Black Mountain Burger, excuse me. And, you know, some local people that were interested, Kim Pickering and what have you. And what we threw out to them was that they had an option. They're the ones that benefited from workforce housing, because they're getting the dollars. They don't have, you all saw a sign on Dunkin' Donuts when it said closed at 3 o'clock because no help. Right now, we're seeing businesses having to close 1 or 2 nights a week. They kind of rotate because no help. We went to Woodstock Station the other night, an hour and a half wait because of lack of help. I mean, there were a lot of customers, obviously, but there was 2 proposals thrown out to them. Number one was to form an LLC. They're the people that have the money. So form an LLC and then see if you can put together a parcel of land somewhere in town and build. And, you know, if I throw in $1 million out of a 10 million, I own 10% of the lot, or housing that would be built. if I throw in 500,000, I own five less. So, you know, that was one of the options. The other option was to form a nonprofit of this group. And consequently, a nonprofit is eligible typically for more funds from the feds and from the state than a private developer. But by the same token, that comes with more restrictions. If somebody in Manchester wanted to live in a unit, you couldn't say no because that's discrimination. So, you know, you have to watch the nonprofit rules. We did have Kayla Tavares, who's very knowledgeable from North Country Council. She's developed a number of flyers. We have the most recent one, the Lincoln Advocates Guide on the amount of housing, the actual median incomes, and population size by age, et cetera, et cetera. And then we had a gentleman who called me today after this meeting started, Bino LaMontagne, who is the economic and business developer from the North Country appointed by the governor. So, you know, we're trying to get people involved if this is going to go forward. We can't do it alone. But by the same token, that's why I'm still of the opinion that, you know, if we bring the community together with a private developer, but we have control over that developer. We don't want to just say, like somebody said, we don't want all luxury, you know, Tammy said, we don't want all luxury housing and to be like South Peak. We want it to be a combination of, you know, affordability, workforce housing, a place for the kids to play. Kristen just said, like mountain bike trails, tie it into the snowmobile trails. I mean, all of those things. One of the things that people not bugging me, excuse me, I'm listening. People have told me, we need a grocery store. Let's get a market basket up there or something on Route 3. Bring more goods and services at a better rate than what we're getting here in town. I mean, these are the conditions that, you know, if that would have passed, then something that we would control and say, okay, we'll put some commercial space in there. It's not going to be all commercial space, but it could be mixed income. So like somebody said, we're not going to be looking at just housing. Variety. We developed in my community mixed income so that somebody's paying $2,000 a month rent. Somebody else here, based on their income, is paying $1,000. That's a mixed income development. The developer makes his or her money or their money based on that $2,000, not on that $1,000, because the developers have a mortgage to carry. They have a note outstanding with the banks, a loan, or whatever the case might be. So consequently, you know, Paul, does that answer your question? In 20 words or less?
Well, I guess, yeah, a long fashioned way, yeah, but what happened to it? Because it ended, right?
Yeah, we had two meetings.
Met and then it ended, right?
We had two meetings, Paul, and, you know, there was really not a major interest. I believe that a couple of the parties involved, in fact, I know a couple of the parties involved, I don't believe, I know, actually have bought property in town and they're housing their employees there. They're looking for other housing that's going to be developed. I think the parcel across the street and up here, they talked about long-term affordable housing. And possibly some of the entities that I previously mentioned are going to basically rent the units there and house employees there. Because we get a lot of, as you know, Paul, H-2Bs and J-1s in the service industry in this community. So, you know, those are the people that are housed on a year-round basis in many cases. It's not just winter housing, it's year-round housing, so.
Any other questions of Meg?
I have a question. So if this should pass, what is this gonna do to our taxes? I know it might be a little put in the cart before the horse, but you know, I think that's something people are gonna wanna know.
And that's a good question. Again, the board hasn't determined what the, you know, how we're gonna do this, but what has been discussed is that we would, first of all, we would not do a bond bank type loan. We would probably go with a bank loan, because the idea would be that, okay, we need $4 million to start this. But then as we sell off parcels of land to a developer, we want to pay down big chunks of that, which you can't do on a municipal bond. But if we went to one of the local banks, we could do that. And they would give a partial, because obviously the land would be the collateral for the loan. They would give a partial release for the sections of property that we would want to sell. So it's hard to say what the ongoing effect of the taxes would be, because again, you know, if, let's say this passes next month, we're then gonna need to go out and secure the loan. You know, deal with the purchase and sales agreement,
Negotiate interest rates with the bank in terms of the loan. You
yeah,
know, if you're comparing it to the bonds that we just recently took out, like last year for the PD.
Right.
And for the water main upgrades, it's gonna be roughly let's guess a $200,000 payment per year. Would, if you take the 4 million and you divide it by, 30 years, we're thinking roughly $200,000 a year. On your tax rate, that's probably 50 cents or so on the tax rate as a whole, but again, that would be financing the whole thing with a relatively comparable interest rate that we got last year, which is in the 4% range. But that could change based on, as OJ said, selling off pieces of the parcels, paying off the loan in advance, doing some sort of financing option like that.
And if I may,
yeah.
I mean, the other thing, Maggie, is possibly, let's say the town does pass it. If the town then puts covenants, restrictions on it and sells the entire parcel based on those restrictions, so the town's getting what it wants, we could make money. Because we don't know, I don't know who the next bidder was, and I don't know what that bid was for, or that offer was for. So, it's worth more to them than it's worth more to us at this $4 million, so we could actually make money. Not that we're in the business of real estate, but at least we've got to protect our interest.
So it will definitely cost something the first year, because it'll take time to go through and then work with developers and again, I'm thinking we want to get input from like Bino LaMontagne, like North Country Council, like Ahead, before we rush into anything. So I'm thinking of the first year, it's probably gonna be the full boat, 200, whatever $1,000. But then as we go forward, once we start selling these off, that amount's gonna go down, and then hopefully it'll actually flip and the town will get back some of the interest money that we've paid in the first couple of years.
Well, and even to that point, OJ, because the warrant article was a petition warrant article, we have to put it on the warrant as it was written. And there was no first year payment built in to that petition. So we won't make a first payment on this loan. We won't be able to until 2025, until it's put in the budget. So you won't see anything in 24. Most likely you'll see something in 25, but there is a possibility that by the time it does, 25 rolls around, we might have recouped some revenue to offset those expenses.
Anyone else, before I call on someone to speak twice, does someone else want to speak, Jim?
I just want to say one thing, that lady, when you're talking about taxes. And I'm gonna shoot a name out there. If the town bought that, they can control how much goes up there, what goes up there. If Longfellow buys it, he can put 2 or 3 hotels up there. He can make it look like South Mountain. When you talk about your taxes, this town's gonna overdevelop itself, and we're gonna be looking at 25, 30 million. To put a new pollution plan. You talk about taxes. Gotta slow these guys down.
If I can,
I think too, Jim, we as a Board of Selectmen have discussed this before with the town manager. And she was involved in a project in a town that needed a new treatment plant. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Corinne, I believe that project ran between 15 and $20 million, or 12 to $20 million. So it's not cheap. Our system right now, as it exists, with everything that's on the planning board's approval, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Everything is at 68 capacity. Once you reach
Or
that,
slightly higher than,
okay, 69, let's say 70%.
I'd say 70, yeah.
Okay, once you reach 80%, then the state puts you on notice. You have to have a plan going forward. You can't keep building until you get that plan approved by the state. And obviously, as Jim points out, it's gonna cost eventually. And we all know that there was a plan approved back in 2006, 2007 for Centex of 1,008 units over in South Peak and only roughly 250. So, you know, that's on the drawing board, that's approved, and that's part of this 60-70% based on bedroom size and what have you. So, and then the other hotels are on the drawing board.
Yeah, anything that's a vested subdivision right now, so anything that's been approved by the planning board in the last 2 decades is in that 70% number. So even though we are encroaching to that 75-80% mark, the Rapids is obviously not developed, South Peak is not developed to its fullest extent, so that incorporates everything.
And Forest Ridge
And
and the new hotel
And the new
up there,
hotel.
all of that sewer capacity is included in that 70%.
You add that 300 acres to that. You could be looking at a new pollution plant,
Again,
and you could be looking at 20-25 million today.
we could be
But you
looking
can
at that,
control
if we can control it,
Right.
we can control it,
So that you wouldn't go over that.
right?
Somebody like Longfellow buys it, he doesn't care.
Right, and just another point with that is, I think it's important to understand the role of the planning board. Because in bringing this up, heard some questions about, well, you know, why doesn't the town make them build housing, because we don't need any more hotels? I agree with that, but that's not how the planning board works. If someone comes and says, I own this piece of land and I want to put a hotel on it, the planning board's role is to look at their plans and look at setbacks and heights and water runoff and parking and all of these things, and make sure that the plan is feasible, doable, acceptable to the town's land use plan. It's not for them to come in and say, no, we don't want you to build a hotel, build housing. We can't do that. That's not the role of the planning board. So, you know, many accusations that the town is promoting this and allowing this and letting all of this happen and it's ruining the town. It's private land that people can do what they want to. They just have to do it within what our rules are. And if they fit the rules, they fit the rules.
Well, if somebody came and wanted to put in long-term housing and fit the rules, be happy as a planning board to do that, and just nobody's shown up to do that yet.
Exactly.
And one thing too, Susan, to that is that, you know, the town through the planning board can incentivize developers by saying a piece of property will only, as current zoning requirements, can only fit 30 units. However, if you put in 10 additional affordable units based on HUD's definition of affordability, will allow you to do that, but they have to be dedicated units strictly for affordable. They can't in 1 month be $1,000 rent and then next month $2,000 rent. So, I mean, that's something that the planning board has the ability to do.
I could say that 15-20 years.
And going along with that, Susan, the planning board, I think it was just at last year's town meeting recommended, and then it got adopted, a change in the zoning that it used to be anything residential required 15,000 square feet of square footage of space to build on. And kind of caught my attention is the Hampton Inn down there. His choice was to build 4 residential units, like 4 apartments, or I forget what's there, but it's 90-ish, 90 hotel rooms.
Yeah.
So as a developer, you're looking at the finances, okay, I can build 4 apartments, I can build 90 hotel rooms. Well, it's not even a choice. We changed the zoning that now looks at apartment buildings the same way it does a hotel. And it's not the number of units. It's again, setbacks, a lot coverage, height restrictions, and they could have built that same building and made it apartments. Of course, it was that law, that change was made afterwards. But we're hoping that and it has been taken advantage, not taken advantage of, but someone has gone forward and approached the planning board and they're gonna build a project with those new rules, so it's working. Good. So. Any other questions or comments, Joe? Oh. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
About 25 years ago, one mountain made for, and the state made a suggestion. For another access road coming out of Loon Mountain. Going right by where the new hotel is going, right at the end of the BOS Ridge, going right around, circumventing it. Coming through three, for the cost of it was prohibitive. Enough people can make enough money off the property, that could probably happen, and alleviate some of the traffic downtown. It's an expensive development, don't get me wrong, it's not a cheap fix. This was looked into. I don't know if you probably weren't on the board, Phil Gravy brought it up, the Mount Corporation brought it up. Syntax hinted around it a little bit. But that's what came for the planning board. But it wasn't feasible at the time, who knows what might happen in the future. At least bump it down Main Street, they come off, go to Route 3, get on 93 south, run it up that way. I know it.
And one of the obstacles to that was that there was a huge section of that proposed road that was on private land. And now if this becomes the town, that whole section becomes town land and it abuts the Forest Ridge property, which, and again, I'm not sure if Forest Ridge homeowners would want to do that. But there certainly could be some incentives for them to do that and have a road that goes across the, I don't think it's gonna be easy to
Let's say it's
build.
feasible. I'm just saying,
It's,
that's one of the options the town has looked at it.
it's one more option to look at, for sure. There's someone online who wants to speak and it just says iPhone, but if you want to speak up?
Hey, it's Danielle Black. How are you all?
Oh, hi Danielle.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I haven't heard anything lately since Donahue offered to buy the lot of land in the industrial park and what the town is doing to promote the sales and to bring in more people to use that parcel of land.
Good question, and I'm glad you asked it because you wanted to make clear this up because I've heard several comments about, well, what about the industrial park? That land's been sitting there empty for 20 years, 30 years, 20 something years, and you know, same thing's gonna happen with this land. Well, a couple of things. First of all, there's certainly more demand right now for residential than there is what are really small lots for industrial type development. So it's really not comparing apples to apples.
Oh, no, that wasn't my point.
No,
I'm just.
no, it's a great question. And what I want to answer is the second part of that is that
Thank you.
when that industrial park was established, there were restrictions on the deed of what you could and could not do with it.
Yep.
And although there was much talk, at least in reading the minutes of meetings back then, of, you know, having this being used for local people who were in business and needed a place to start their business. But when the restrictions were written, it was written so that no one whose primary purpose was to work off-site could build their business there. So that excluded every electrician, plumber, carpenter, construction worker, general contractor, anyone who does, like, you know, the electrician is gonna stay in their shop. They're gonna go out to houses and buildings and do electrical work. So they were all excluded from that business park. And that stayed that way until 2023. And the board went through a process of hearings and rewriting the restrictions that now very clearly state that the restriction is no self-storage units or any type of business that is primarily storage. Because that was the goal, at least as I read it, back in the 90s, whenever they determined this. But the way they wrote it also restricted, as they said, electricians, plumbers, etc. So we wrote those restrictions. We had public hearings on it, public input, and put that in place in 2023. And we sold one more lot last week. Kurt O'Connell bought a lot. His construction business is going down in the business park.
Perfect. Yeah.
And
Yeah. But I just wonder, I mean, I know that we had talked about listing it and putting it out there on the open market, and I wasn't really sure where that stood, if it's actually being like advertised.
we have, there's two ways you can go. One is to choose one real estate agent and give them an exclusive listing. And then anyone who is working with a different real estate agent has to co-broke with that listing agent. The second way in which we thought we would go out there is to notify, and we did this in writing, every, at least brokerage company. I'm not sure we had every real estate agent, but at least their broker was made aware that we have the lots for sale, that we change those restrictions. And those are the types of companies, businesses that we're now looking to attract: electricians, plumbers, you know,
Yeah,
trades.
yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I was just
so-
thinking if we sold those, it would help offset a little bit of the cost for this other parcel of land, because I know when the town voted to not purchase that parcel on Mansion Hill, you know, with the well in question, that now there's a lot of complaints because a developer bought it, and I'm all for buying Campers World and preserving that aspect of the town, and I just would hate to see another Mansion Hill project be placed up there. And you know, my thought and question with the industrial park is just to see if some of the costs, you know, might offset the purchase price a little.
Yeah, we're hopeful of that. Be good to see some income from that. Again, and I've stated this many times in the past, is the goal of that park was never to, you know, make big bucks off of it. It was to provide workspace for manufacturers, tradespeople, any type of business that is appropriate in that park. It was more the employment aspect than whether we sold it for this much or that much.
Danielle, when I had those meetings in regards to the housing with the business people, we talked about, as that being a town-owned parcel, of converting that into housing that land. And we approached the two businesses that were there, and one of the gentlemen, they're both gentlemen, both of them, one of them agreed to allow you know, a change in the covenants there so that we could build housing, because it restricted housing on that. The other gentleman, and again, these are recorded easements, so both parties would have to agree to it, both covenants. And one party did, the other party didn't. So we could not go forward with putting housing on that land there. And I did approach the neighborhood, and a couple people were in favor, a couple people were, you know, against it because of the traffic that it would generate. And I indicated to that family or two families that, you know, traffic wouldn't be every morning at 8 o'clock coming out of there. People work different shifts, as we know, you know, waiters, waitresses, bartenders, house cleaners, et cetera, whatever went in there, police, fire, they work different shifts, so it wouldn't generate that. So that, you know, they were satisfied with that. But again, it went nowhere because both parties that have these covenants couldn't agree to a change.
So thank you. Any other question, Jim?
Kind of follow up with Danielle. If we had low income housing or affordable housing in this town, get more workers into this town, maybe businesses would want to move into this town, and you'd sell some of those lots.
I mean, that's a good point.
Because you take a look around, because everything is being built. Electricians, they're coming from Laconia, they're coming from Concord.
Even Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, if they had their workers here, why wouldn't they have a shop?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at with the you know, the purchasing of Campers World, and might entice other contractors to come and buy from the industrial park, and you know, encourage the growth that way. You know, but that's all I had for a comment, but I appreciate your letting me speak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else want to say something, ask a question? All right, Joe?
Some years ago, I was approached by a consortium out of Montreal. They're looking for ways to bring the small shops down here. In fact, the mill was, one time, they wanted to build oil tanks before this all got developed. There's some of these companies that have talked to them, they said, we have a seminar, like Boston Boat Show or Expo Center. Every year, you want to come up, set up a table, show us what the town has to offer. We could probably bring some money down to alleviate some of the expenses and really good at putting you keeping businesses, adding on to it in Canada. But that rates here more conducive. You know, over down here, we don't pay 20% of the sales tax. Here you have your TSP and we have a tax, other tax coming by an item. When you fuel up there, it went up 47 cents a liter, which is about $2 a gallon. In fact, some of us even off the roof to go up and put the table in. Some people in town, some of us spoke French. We could talk to the French as well as the English and promote it. I presented that to the selectmen a couple of years ago, about 15 years ago, actually. And planning board, but nothing ever came of it. And this is some of the options. Do the same thing in Boston too. Because you can have extra land, like you said, possible business development, certain parts of it. They want to be a small industry. The thing is with employee housing, you want to diversify. You can't really depend on a tourist industry all the time. Remember 1999? You could buy a $400,000 condo for $90,000. And the economy went to bed. It really went down.
And you
Any
make a good point. I think one of the problems with selling lots in the industrial park is that no business was really highly motivated to move to Lincoln because they couldn't get employees. You know, the one out-of-state company that did move there, had this as a second home, and they've established themselves here because they really wanted to live in Lincoln, and so they brought their business with them. But to get a business to come here and build and try to find employees, we're not the spot for that. But now that we've changed the rules, we're gonna get more people like Kurt O'Connell, who just
Correct.
bought the lot, who's from this area, went to school here, has a business here, it just now needs a place to make headquarters.
They have to go together, one way or the other. What goes around comes around.
Right. All right, is there anyone else?
I just have a comment.
Yep.
So what are we feeling on the street? What are people saying about this? People for it, are people against it?
I think
What
it's
do you- have you heard much? I know it's just new to everybody, but I'm just curious. I haven't heard much about it from one other than what I saw on Facebook. I haven't talked to anybody.
Again, I've seen much of it on Facebook, and I think it's pretty divided.
Yeah, I
Some
think it's
people are
very
passionately for it, and some people are totally against it without knowing anything about it. And then some people are against it, and I'm gonna read you Bill Kahn's letter, because I think he did a decent job here, you know, kind of outlining his objections. But I was gonna wait till people were done, but yeah, but I think there's a mix of, you know.
We have a lot of people asking questions
Yep.
and we
Which
don't
is
have a
good.
lot of answers. So, we have a lot of people interested in knowing what's happening and asking a lot of questions, but we don't have a lot of answers for those questions, so.
Yep, Jamie, you want to say something?
Yeah, probably three things. One thing is, if this goes, to get back to the Facebook part, if people actually physically came here and listened, such as myself, they would get a better understanding. Because we can all speculate. And we can get our dander up, but if you actually come here and ask questions, it gets clarified. So that I appreciate you having this meeting tonight. Another thing is, if the town should be able to get this property, I really hope and pray that you specify a certain area so that people, just common people in the town, or who have kids that have grown and came back and couldn't afford a $500,000-600,000 house that was $100,000 probably 4 years ago, can come back here and live and put our kids in school. But I just hope you kind of put a cap on a certain area so that it can't be outrageous and untouchable for the future generations. And I believe it was Ed Clark Senior that wanted that big boulder with a serenity prayer engraved. I hope and pray that if the town gets it, they leave that there and not her.
Or the big boulder right across the bridge, I mean, right across the bridge.
No, up at the top
Up
of
at
the
the top, around the
where
corner.
the snowmobile trail and bike path and all that stuff goes.
It's big in the side of this room, south of there.
No, but Ed had the Serenity Prayer engraved in this huge boulder. What's the boulder? 15, 18 feet high?
It
Um,
makes me look like an ant when I stand.
with,
by
with,
it.
with the prayer, I mean, yeah, you guys have seen it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's nice, and I just like to see that.
Again, that's a great point. I mean, that's something that the town could preserve.
Yeah.
I would hope a developer would want to. I mean, it's pretty unique. But, you know, if that's in the way of where the, I don't know, the most expensive lot's gonna be, yeah, they might move it out of the way. Who knows?
Rock came from Canada. 2 ice ages ago.
Okay. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Did you, something?
Yeah, does anybody know, everybody that's, putting their input on this and Facebook and everything else? Does anybody know if they're just taxpayers or are they voters? At the last meeting we had in here with the, short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Probably 3/4 of the people in here were not voters.
I think this particular topic hits home a little bit more. I think it hits the local community a little bit more than the short-term rental. You know, I think the short-term rental population is a little bit more diverse.
Taxpayer might, these short-term rental people don't want their taxes to go up, so they'd be against it.
But they can't vote at town meeting.
Right, so that's why I'm saying, how many of these people have put their input in? Are they voters?
They, a lot of them are not, but that's okay. I mean, you know, again, on social media, anyone can put their sense in, and half of those people really didn't know anything about it. But, you know, as someone who runs these meetings, I've always allowed, without question, input from people who are property owners, taxpayers, but don't live here. But when it comes to voting, you're right, the only ones whose vote counts is the people who live here, whether they own property or not. If they live here, they vote. So it depends on whether it's a hearing like this.
You look around, it's probably all voters.
I don't think the sort of call owner care about the people for thousand. I agree. They're like, we're not gonna get in on that, so. That's why there's like 5 people or something like that.
Oh,
Whole screen or two.
Yep. Tammy, one.
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard it from, but somebody was saying something about stipulations on going close to the river now, that they can't build certain things near the river. Could you explain that to me if you even know what they were talking about to me?
Is that this river?
To any river in mountains, from my understanding, you have to have certain there's restrictions.
Yeah, there's, I'm not a developer, I can't give you all, but I know like there's the high water mark and you can't build below that, and you have to be so many feet back from that. You know, in flood areas and wetland areas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's the
Flood-
inability that they can, it's whether or not they wanna spend the money to ensure that they have the flood protection and the flood insurance and all that kind of stuff that's associated with it,
So
so.
as far as type of businesses or anything, is there restrictions on what can go near a river?
I imagine there are, yes, yeah.
There are, yeah. Just if they're near any of the down draw side of the river. Or it's water treatment.
Thank you.
So I'll read the letter from Bill Kahn. And again, I got some comments made through Facebook, which we addressed all of them because there was questions about the industrial park. Danielle brought that up. There's questions about subsidized housing. And then there were additional things that I would consider more accusations than than questions, but if anyone thinks that we're gonna make special deals with people. Or we're gonna subsidize people's rent with town money and other craziness, we'll let that all stay in social media because it's really not reality. So this is from Bill Kahn. The campus will property tweaked my interest. After watching a meeting and Facebook post, I gave more thought to it. I have come to the conclusion that you don't have a plan. I think the town of Lincoln should not get in the development business without a plan. First, I would like to ask each select person and the town manager individually if they support this. And I believe that answer is yes still, unless anyone's changed their mind. And then you wrote, these are my questions. Did you have an engineer look at this? If so, do you have a report? We've not done due diligence that would come between the signing of the purchase and sales agreement and signing the deed. Did you get an estimate for engineering? We have not done that. And again, I guess there's engineering money in the budget to bring that to a certain point, and we would have certainly some guidance from an engineer going forward. How much usable land? We have soil maps and we have topographical maps that, again, with the advice of an engineer, we could look at, because it's different. I mean, some of this land is absolutely not buildable. It's on the side of a mountain, but there's a lot that is. But we don't have any, I can't give you how many acres are. We'd need to work through that. The river setback, yes, there is a setback from the river that would have to be abided by. That might make a good place for the relocated snowmobile / mountain bike trail. Who knows? A bridge cost, what is the bridge cost? We don't know that. Again, we're hoping to partner with someone who, in exchange for having, 40 condos that they can build up there, would put in a bridge. Ultimately, that'll be shared. Someone might get a great deal on the first piece of land because they have to build a bridge. And then the next guy is not going to get that big of a deal because they got a free bridge already built. And then the extending utilities across the river. 4 million is about a third of what you need just to start this project. If the existing infrastructure doesn't fit your plan, then that part is of no use. That's true. And again, maybe I'm dreaming, but it seems like the logical way to get from the river elevation to the main road elevation is by the road that's already existing and by the water and sewer infrastructure that was put in place. The rock walls need to be re-engineered and looked at. Probably does drainage ditches need to be cleared after 40 years of tree growth. Oh yeah, there's still stuff to be done, but anyway, go ahead, Tammy.
Yes, I was just listening to a recording. Back when we had the 2 ahead meetings, you had another meeting and without a head after for the people. I was listening to the recording, and when the Sullivans purchased their property, I believe the advertising price was 110 and they bought it for 70,000, if I'm correct on the figures. And then there was a talk about the industrial park again and reducing the cost and everything. So if the town does buy this Campus Grove property and they choose to keep a section, are they gonna fluctuate back and forth on the parcels like what happened at the industrial park? It was advertised at 110 and then it went down, and then the Sullivans bought it. I believe you were even talking about going down to 63,000 for a lot at the time. From what was on the recording. So in all fairness to the people on the sections that you keep, if you want it for certain housings, like I asked, I would like to see a minimum lot requirement no less than an acre, preferably more per building. Speaking single family housing, I'm not talking about duplexes, I'm not talking about anything else. That doesn't fluctuate. That it stays fair and the same for everybody if it's sold within a certain amount of time. And with realistic reasoning because like with COVID, things were down and then they went up and then they went drastically up. So I understand in time the market will change, but for a certain amount of period of time, to give people a chance to get financing and find out what you have here. Do you make it fair for everybody? You keep it one price, not fluctuate, and if you advertise, it stays that price. And what gets me thinking this too is the planning board meeting that I just went to on setbacks, not setbacks, but slope sides and all this stuff, and we might have allowed this and give exceptions for that. It just doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't apply. It's not quality for everybody. And I just would like to see that if the town does own some of this land, they stick to their word and don't let anybody be in their pocket. You know, just, or don't be in anybody else's pocket, just treat everybody the same, whatever else. You understand what I'm trying to say, you know?
I think there's some hidden accusations in that, but I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to discuss the history of the pricing of the industrial
My
park.
pockets are empty, Tammy, I'll tell you that. It's there.
You want to look at mine?
I think originally the prices on those were above $150,000 when they.
At the industrial park?
Yeah,
Okay, well, on this recording, at
Okay.
this particular meeting, I'm going by the figures.
right. No, I'm just saying that before that meeting,
Yeah.
going back before I was a selectman, the lots prices were higher. And it's not like we were playing favorites or not treating people fairly. And it's called market value.
And that's not
Okay.
what the Sullivans or anybody was saying either. It's just it was still advertised at that price. Nobody had seen that. So then a lot of people weren't coming in from the way the recording was and the way I interpreted what they were saying is you let them get it at that price, but you were willing to go like 63 on something that was mentioned in there for the same thing, but yet it was still on the market at 110. So you might have had more buyers at the time and that had been updated.
That's true. No, what you said, if we're advertising something for 110 and then we make a deal for 60.
Right.
People may have walked away that would have come forward. I think the problem was that when we stopped listing it, it stayed, and the town can't control this on some websites at that higher price. We, the board, went through a process of learning that you could buy a bigger lot for less money at the industrial park in Concord than you could in Lincoln. And that kind of opened our eyes, like, okay, where's the higher demand? Concord. Where's there a bigger workforce base? Concord. Why is Lincoln's industrial park priced percentage-wise way above Concord? And we had that discussion and said we're never going to sell the lots, no matter what the restrictions are, right? If it's twice the price of what you can get elsewhere. So it's market value. We believe we sold it for 100% of the market value. Now, if you're saying, Campus World property, first of all, if you have a 1 acre size minimum, that's expensive to bring water and sewer and paved road to a 1 acre lot. Okay, if you can divide the water, sewer and roadway costs by 100 units instead of 30 units, it's going to be less expensive for the 100 units. Now, there has to be some balance between, obviously apartments can be very dense. Single family houses are spread out. There's also cluster development where, let's say if the minimum lot size is 15,000 square feet. Okay, instead of having 20 lots of 15,000 square feet, you put a bunch of houses closer to, say, the road and the utilities, and then have the shared space, open space, behind those lots, still equaling 15,000 per unit, but not all divided up. It'd be shared space, called a cluster development.
Well, that was just a wish that I had, that they wouldn't be house on top of house on top of house. That was just me throwing that out there. That's not what I'm saying you're going to do. But I'm just asking, on whatever lot sizes you cut them up at, just make sure, I'm asking that you please don't fluctuate on the price this time, just keep it at whatever the market value is at the time. 5 years down the road, it could be different, but at this time, if you purchase it, I ask that everybody gets treated fairly. So that, somebody doesn't come in and say, well, I just bought that for such and such amount. And the other one says, well, I can't do that now because they raised the price. And it could be 6 months difference in time, and I'm just asking that whatever section you designate for affordable housing anyways, not workforce or anything like that, just affordable housing for full-time year-round residents. Just make it so it can happen.
And that would be our goal.
Yeah.
And again, thing is, Jack mentioned, our workforce consists of a vast array of workers, everybody. We get a lot of feedback that, the lift attendants and waitresses can't afford that. Well, maybe they can't, but the guy putting the electricity in the, $3 million house up on South Peak, he can afford it.
We do have to start thinking of the waitresses.
We absolutely do, but we have to look at both, we have to look at the array, so maybe there is some, housing up there that's smaller apartments, and maybe they are owned by Loon or South Peak or private restaurants, or like Jack, let's say a consortium of businesses built a 30-unit apartment building. And let's say Loon rented 10 of those units, they become the landlord then for their units, and they don't have to abide by the fair housing laws if they own it, and they're letting their employees stay in their units. Because it's their units, okay? Just like you can rent your units to whoever you want, okay? And I don't know, let's say Woodstock Station owned 4 units, and then another business and another business. You could do something like that to house the waitresses, the housekeepers, the lift attendants, but at the same time, have single family lots down here for people who might be, the accountant at the business over there, or the general manager of that business, or whatever. So our hope is to have a much broader customer base than some of these other, projects that are more high end.
Now, for the area, if you decided to keep an area for yourself, are you gonna have it? Or propose to have it, that it's not second, third homes, but it's year-round homeowners, any stipulations like that? Airbnbs, I know at the beginning you said you can control all that, but is that your intent as board to limit that or not allow that in certain areas up there?
Go ahead.
I'd just say, Tammy, go back one step before I answer that. I don't think anybody in this room had a parcel of 300 acres would say that every section is worth the same amount of money. We're gonna find ledge and clay here. We're gonna have to bring up utilities higher up. That's gonna cost more money. So you have to obviously reduce the cost of that land based on what it's gonna cost to develop.
And I understand that part.
As the second part of it there, I don't think that the town's gonna get into ownership. At least I don't feel we should be into ownership. But we can control the covenants that go with the land as we parcel it off. And consequently get what you, the townspeople, want through committee. And realize the full capacity of that land. The bottom portion of that land, again, one of the, not complaints, one of the issues that people are addressing to me, Jack, we need more restaurants in town. But I said to those parties, but we need people to staff those restaurants. Alex Ray was gonna put a diner across here, as you know, on that parcel of land that he cleared.
Yeah.
He was at the meeting. And he said to me, I said, Alex, what's the full complement of staff across the way? 55. I said, wow. I said, how many people do you have now? He says, 19. And I'm looking at somebody that worked there. And he said, you know, we're bringing people in on their days off from our other places that we own to staff that. Many times the upstairs in the common man was not open to the public because of staffing issues. So, you know, it's trying to satisfy as many people as we can with the housing, with affordable housing, with workforce housing. The other thing, we talked with Dennis Duchamp, you know, with Riverwalk. And obviously he's building what, 62 more units there in a conference center. Look at his advertisements. He's looking for people. Where's he gonna house these people? And, you know, I think he'd be somebody that might be interested. I haven't personally spoken to him about that issue. There's other issues he's dealing with. But by the same token, I said to him, you know, Dennis, if this comes to fruition, I said, it's gonna be years in the making. It's nobody's gonna happen, should think that it's gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna happen overnight. As OJ cited, you've got to get engineering, you've got to get architect, you've got to get test borings in the soil, you've got to get bonds, etc. So, you know, it's a process that will take time. And nobody should go away from this meeting feeling that, oh yeah, if it passes at town, we're gonna have people living there the next year. It ain't gonna happen.
But thinking realistically, we know that won't happen.
And just going back to your comments about short-term rentals, when that was brought up by the Board of Selectmen.
I kept my mouth shut, it had nothing to do.
But
with
the real pushback was that the current owners of any property in town would suffer a loss in value for their house if they couldn't sell it as an Airbnb unit, or at least the potential to be an Airbnb unit. So there's a lot of people who didn't want the restriction on residential zones because they would lose value. If we go into this project and say, okay, as part of, you know, so-and-so developer is going to put 40 units over here. As part of the negotiation between the town and that developer, it's like, okay, but in your homeowner's documents, no short-term rentals, okay? Or maybe even a deed restriction, no short-term rentals. Okay, now they're not losing value in their house. They're gonna buy, the first buyer of that property is gonna know that they can't use it for Airbnb rentals, and they're gonna factor that into what they pay and what they think they can sell it for in the future, etc. We're gonna do that for the whole project? I don't know. We're gonna get public input for this, but that's certainly something that can be addressed.
Right, no, I was just saying, if the town sectioned off a certain, whatever, parcel, and just stipulated it was to be for the average income. And it was to stay for family use, not business use. You know, just, I know it's gonna happen. If some cap isn't put somewhere, it is gonna happen that people are just gonna be using it for investment again. And the people that keep on turning around for investment are not gonna settle for what the average person in this town can afford. I keep my rentals right down, and I pay all the utilities so they can afford to live there. I don't have people in and out. I'm not looking to make a killing. You know, it just, but you don't see that on a rarity.
Well, the investor is gonna be less likely to purchase a place that short-term rentals aren't allowed.
Again, repeat. Just a certain section, not the whole thing, just a certain section, so that people can raise their kids here. Everybody's talking about kids going to school, doing things in this town, businesses having people working in this town, living in this town. We gotta do something so that they can do it, and there's nothing going to threaten.
Again, yes, absolutely, within the confines of the Fair Housing Act. Okay, we can't tell people, oh, you're not gonna live here, you can't buy this house. You know,
And that's still not how I'm trying to say it, but you'll figure it out.
okay, then maybe I don't understand.
But it shouldn't be used as a rental property for a short-term rental property.
Short-term rentals, we absolutely can restrict that.
It's for the community and for the workforce, short-term rentals are is what the story.
Exactly, and we can restrict those from this property. Whether it's the whole thing or most of it or some of it.
And I'm not asking for the whole thing, I just a certain amount, just why not? Why not stay here and
the whole thing.
bring the families into town?
I'm fine with restricting it for the whole thing.
Yeah, who
But-
want the whole thing?
You know, I do, I think that's, you know, our downtown community is, you know, a hotel.
Already.
On a short-term rental, you go down to the Hampton and. Hotel, whatever, that's your short-term rental, you know, yeah, so it's great.
All right, is there any more questions, input? Happy to listen. All right. All of this discussion here was great. But what's gonna count is your vote on March,
Bring everybody,
Well,
you know, that.
second
the
Tuesday in
resident-
March. Yes,
I just have one thing, and I don't even know if it's a question, I don't know, I got 100 different things running around in my mind. You know, on this whole area, this whole subject. But I mean, ultimately, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, devil's advocate. Like, is anybody, like, it all sounds like you guys, you know, I get you guys wanna do this, and I'm not saying. That it's a bad idea or a good idea, I think that. Like you said from the beginning, you're looking to have us. Has to go out and get a $4 million loan on a piece of property that we have zero plan on, which I get, you've been honest with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day. Like, you can build whatever you want out there, and then this kind of goes back to you, Tammy, too, with the. You need people that can go to the banks and get loans. Like, it's not, I don't know if anyone's tried to get a loan recently, but it's just getting harder and harder and harder to get. Like, I mean, between the interest rates and, so. Like, anything that would be considered affordable housing, I mean, those people, you've gotta be able to get a loan at the bank. Because if you're looking for affordable housing, then that tells me that, you know, you probably don't have a big bank account. To go out and buy property, right? So, like, have we given that any thought? Or have you guys given that any thought, like?
Your apartments for rent.
yeah, I say that, you know, part of that project. I would see including, would include, you know, rental units. Where people didn't need a down payment and didn't need a loan. But could find a rental apartment, that was within their means.
So wait a minute, so you're going to buy it, then you're going to have somebody build an apartment. So who's the landlord?
We, the developer. We would. give
How
them-
many years is it gonna take to get a bridge across there if nobody wants to develop in there? The town is gonna sit on a $4 million loan from the bank. You guys can't come up with another 16 million to put a bridge across and the water across, right?
And
I
then
mean,
they can just sell it back to the next biggest bidder.
Let's say you're right. Let's say we
And
spend.
that kind of defeats the whole purpose.
right,
of what
and
I'm trying to do.
why?
But listen, this is, what if we spent the next year talking to a head in North Country Council and you know, Bino and developers and after a year of work, we can't find one person who wants to develop over there.
Then it's gonna sit just like the other place does,
Or,
right?
or do we go to the person who outbid us already? And say, we'll give you a deal on this land. They may not,
Right.
but I think it's a pretty low risk that we're buying this at less than someone's already offered for it
For today, at today's price.
at today's prices. Okay,
Things could change.
now, if you think the world economy is gonna tank in the next year. Who knows? Who knows? Go ahead, Paul.
One of my big concerns here about this whole project is that the tax rate. That the tax that you'll generate from that property up there, based on what I'm hearing here tonight. Is not gonna be anywhere near. The taxes that you would generate, that property would generate if it was in a developer's hands.
Right.
So we, the town, will then, town proper currently, will be subsidizing most of what we need to have, if we need that $23 million sewer plant or an upgrade for water or sewer, no matter where it's a sewer pump station that's there by Billy Collins' house would definitely need to be upgraded to take on stuff like that. I don't know about the rest of the water sewer infrastructure, just for that location of property. If we were going to have a full-time fire department because of this or something like that. So my concern is that as a taxpayer is, I sit here today, lived in this town a long time, and I thought all this development was gonna keep my taxes low, and they are low. But this year my taxes went up. Where's all that money being spent that the developments are generating today? So our tax rates for our local population is going up, and they're still building over there and everywhere else, and they're making a ton, they're giving the town a ton of money, and our taxes are still going up. But my concern is that, you know, over there, if you're building lesser, and I don't want to call them lesser quality, but lesser valued housing versus what a developer would be building over there, it's gonna generate less revenue, tax revenue for the town of Lincoln. And some of these projects, the bigger projects that might come up, are gonna come out of everybody's pocket again. And there's elderly here, people who have lived here, hell, I'm probably one of the elderly now. You know, but that's what I'm saying, so I mean, you know, it could cause an imbalance and for people that have lived here for a long time and all of a sudden now, because we're trying to do this project and help everybody, some of the ones that have been here a while really are gonna pay for some of that stuff. And I don't know any way out of that, but that's, you know, that's one of the concerns I have.
Yeah, no, and that's legitimate. I mean, if we let people just build, you know, $800,000 condos and $1.5 million houses up there.
$2 or $3 million condos, they're selling for $3 million.
3.5 one listed for over there. I don't know if they sell it for that,
I don't people are paying $3 million for condos over here.
okay.
Over there, you might buy a $500,000 house, and I don't know what, I mean, if you take a look at the wage structure in the town for the average person. You know, the average person is not making that kind of money, they could afford today's building prices. Today's building costs are, I can't remember what it was last time for per square foot cost, but it's a lot. So I mean, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I mean,
$300 a square foot.
anyway, yeah, I mean, so if you're building for $300 a square foot, I mean, it's a pretty expensive house on a waitress's salary or a bartender's salary or something like that. Pretty tough to come up with.
Right.
You know, I mean, Rena couldn't find a place to live in town if she's town manager. Oh, so seriously, I mean, right, because of the prices of housing are crazy.
Yeah, I don't think we're singling out the waitress or the.
No, that's what I'm saying, but I think it, you know, you have to look at that consistency and how the tax rate is gonna be applied here, so it doesn't affect a lot of people that have lived here for a long time.
Well, just for information, factual. The 2021 median income in Lincoln was $55,714. I mean, that was 2 years ago. So let's add 3% there. So it's close to 60,000. This is according to North Country Council. Statistical information.
That is taking account of.
You're absolutely right. I think the town has a huge decision, but a huge opportunity here. Do we want to just let them build $1 million houses up there and collect the taxes on them? Or do we want to, again, it's not gonna cost us, but we'll have a lower tax base if we guide the development up there, but we'll have a bigger work base so that some of the people who are here now, businesses and all that, can function better with full employment. Like Alex Ray.
I mean, the value. Sad thing about this whole town really has got to be that property in the town of Lincoln is valued so much for development right now that local people can't afford it. And if you do lower it or try and make it affordable so that local people can afford it, then the taxes that they're paying are going to be lower. And the people who are still developing are going to need services that, you know, new sewer treatment plant, new full-time fire department. So you got, I mean, when you look at all of that, there's some big questions, there's some big questions in my mind about how the equity of how that works, and do I want to continue? Even today, looking around this room, everybody in this room who owns the house here, this year paid an increased tax rate. Take a look at across the street, total like crazy, $3 million home. I mean, can't get on Main Street, you can't go to the grocery store, I admit all that stuff, you can't go to a restaurant to eat. I mean, it's all crazy, it's not gonna get any better.
2 pieces, $63.
It will,
I mean, you know, you're.
it will be
He's
better for
right.
it would be better.
You
for
know,
the
I mean, and it's not gonna get
I
any
would-
better.
Also, go back to the full-time fire department. We're not gonna get volunteers for the fire department if they can't afford to live in Lincoln. They'll volunteer for the town that they live in. Okay, so factor that into your equation. We're gonna have to go with a full-time department because there's no affordable housing for people.
For those types of things, you're right, but they'll live on the outskirts, and they'll come in, we'll end up with a full-time fire department. That will have housing, so they'll stay there. If you look at any larger community, I'm not talking Boston, I'm talking Tilton, Laconia, yeah, places like that. People. You have bedroom communities, and then you have communities that have a lot of businesses in them. Lincoln's really, you know, a mix of both, only as part-time businesses, but I mean, I know Woodstock doesn't have a very big business. Gathering there, but they have a lot of residential properties, and this is a residential based, you know, town. But it's tough when it comes to the taxes, and that's really that's one of my biggest concerns.
Go ahead.
I would like to say something.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Go for it.
Okay, go ahead. On the Zoom, go ahead.
Hey, it's Kristen. Just a couple of points. One, our tax rate is 11.68. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but that is incredibly low. Locally, the next towns around us are, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 points higher. Secondly, the only towns in our state that have tax rates lower than Lincoln don't have school systems. So that is something that I feel like that's kind of important to know. So if this increase happens, it will be not a huge increase, but it will still remain much lower than the surrounding towns. And the reason that our tax rate has increased recently is because there are so many Airbnbs and the houses have been sold with that incentive, therefore increasing the market value. Along with our traffic on Pollard Road, where the residences are, where there are Airbnbs. So, all that being said, this right now is our best option. Our tax rate will still remain much lower than surrounding towns, and we'll be able to get workers back in the area, if not at least get some to stay. That is all.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to make one comment before,
Yeah.
and just in regards to the town's total assessed value. Paul is right, we see multi-million-dollar homes going up all along South Peak. You have to take into consideration, though, that for a home to hit the town's tax roll, it takes roughly 2 years. The way the taxes are assessed in the state of New Hampshire is whatever's there on April 1 is the way it's taxed till the following March 31st. So you get a person who gets a building permit, the assessors go out, it's April 1, they look at what's there, and it's only a foundation. We know that since COVID, building supplies, everything takes longer than what it needs to. So these homes that have been started in 21 are just coming online in 23 right now. We've had an influx. We probably have had about, I don't know, maybe I've been here since the end of 21. We probably have issued 120 single family home permits since then. Very few of them, a very small percentage of them are on our tax roll right now. You're going to see the town's assessed value as a whole increase exponentially over the next 5-10 years. Paul is right. They haven't hit our tax roll yet. They will.
But neither has the increases. Like, a new sewer plant at 20 some odd $1 million, or things like that. Maybe a new full-time fire department. So as those things start coming on, they are gonna cost the town a lot more as well.
The only person that I hear really talk about a full-time fire department, Paul, is you. I mean, I know that that is somewhat of an interest to people outside of the communities, but I don't think the two communities together have ever said, this is a worthwhile endeavor that we need to go down. So I think that's a few years down the line, but I don't disagree that there are a lot of unknowns. And there are a lot of knowns. We know the sewer treatment plant is gonna need to be upgraded. There are a lot of unknowns. But I think it's a greater unknown having a developer come in and take that parcel and do whatever they want with it. Than the town saying, this is a worthwhile venture for us to consider. And granted, it's not gonna make my job easier owning this 300 acres, okay? I am slightly indifferent to the whole idea, I'm not gonna lie. It's not gonna make my job any easier, it's gonna make it exponentially harder probably for the next few years. But I do think that this is an opportunity for the town to decide what they want there and have a thoughtful and time to develop a plan for that parcel.
It's good that you say that, but it's also true that you live out of town and you don't have any skin in the game.
Well, if you hope to keep me around for a while, I hope you think I have skin in the game. No, I don't live here. I don't live in this community. As you said, I can't afford a home in this community. But if you want me to be your town manager, which is, I guess the verdict's still out, you would hope that I would have a vested interest.
But you know, verdict's still up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think it's great this conversation is happening, and I guess, you know, the idea of bedroom communities and people living outside and then coming here and work, like, that's great too. But I have many friends, like my age group is who's trying to buy houses, build houses, rent. People can't buy housing even, I don't know, go up north to Lyman where I grew up. You could not find a rental that's affordable, you can't find a house that's affordable, like, it's not so easy to just say, oh yeah, like, we're gonna drive an hour, drive 45 minutes, drive an hour, you know, like, it's not that easy, so.
What do you call it for? It's good for my.
Wait, can you just state your name for the minutes?
Oh, sorry, Caitlin Nelson.
What would you consider affordable? It's nice to hear you, by the way, but what would you consider affordable? I'd be interested.
What would I consider affordable?
Someone that's looking at a house, stuff like that.
I mean, I think that's really relative to, but I think a lot of people that I work with, I mean, you're looking for something under, I don't know, what's a good question to answer, I guess,
Okay.
but I think
That's fine.
well under 250, yeah. Is that acceptable?
Yep, that's exactly what I was gonna hope you would say, but
Yeah.
I don't think you could be able to build that up there for 250 or 3.
But I'm just saying that I think it's important.
That's what
I think it's important to look at options because there are no options right now.
I think
So
the
if-
goal is to have a socio diverse environment up there where there are going to be some low to moderate income homes. And then there will be some middle, I think that is the goal, is to have a diverse community.
And apartments. And residential condos that people can live in that are lower priced than a single family freestanding house. And cluster developments, which would be a freestanding house, but less expensive than on their own 15,000 square foot lot. So again, and employee housing, where Loon owns 8 units in this building. And their employees
bring people in to work, that obviously you're looking for people that are gonna husband and wife, maybe, you know, or that might have children to help go to the school and you know, support the school, but those are the people that are gonna be looking for, as this lady said, is $200,000-300,000 home that in today's market, by the time you pay for the land and you pay for the cost of the materials and put it up, $200,000 or $300,000 doesn't buy you a lot in today's world, you know, it just doesn't. It's a sad thing. It's a real sad thing.
Hopefully they'll be making more money by then too, because the local businesses will be paying their employees more.
You know, well, not everybody's gonna own a home. Some people never own homes. they're gonna have to rent, I mean, the rest of their life. You know, I've got two sons that, you know, one owns, one rents, and he's probably gonna rent because of his income, not afford in the area that he lives. I'm just looking in front of me, and these go back a couple of years ago, the income guidelines. But one of the things that a developer can do is apply for project-based assistance. That means he, she, or they, when they build, are putting a subsidy into the unit. So no matter what, HUD is gonna pay X, the tenant is gonna pay 30 to 40% of their adjusted gross income. That allows them to live within reason. They shouldn't be paying more than 30 to 40% of their adjusted gross income. And those income limits are set by HUD. I mean, that's one thing that a developer can look at, not we as town officials will, but a developer can do that, and to, you know, make sure that these folks have, that are gonna live there, have, you know, a reasonable amount to live on, other than just pay rent for, you know, 80% of their salaries.
Familiar with that, Jack, I just, again, I started off talking about the taxes, but then those places are assessed for a lot less money than a $3 million house.
Oh, right.
You know, the inequity somewhere, it's gonna have to be picked up somewhere.
Yep.
And as it is right now, currently, it's being picked up by the residents of Lincoln. You know, the tax-paying residents of Lincoln are paying more money today because. Will they all, when they all come online, will that change? Who knows? By then we might need a new sewer treatment plant of $3 million, and that could change the whole thing, seriously.
It should.
You're right. You know, no one knows, no one has the crystal ball.
No.
You know, so.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you, Paul, that if that parcel tomorrow, if the town had zero interest in that parcel and that parcel tomorrow sold to the developer at the highest price tag, it would bring in much more tax revenue than what we're proposing. No one is denying that. That is a fact. But is it worth it to the town to reduce that revenue to try to save the local community or save the school or revitalize Route 3, whatever it may be? Is it worth that risk for the town? And that's an individual choice.
Yeah, that's a question. I agree. I mean, I'm like, we can do it. Seriously, you know.
Right. Well, and as I've said to you before, if I was voting, I know, again, I don't have skin in the game. It would be a difficult decision for me as well, because that's where it would lie.
And, you know, we're talking about the tax rate. One thing you gotta keep in mind. And I did this 2 years ago, and I'm not sure what the number is now, but back 2 years ago. 87% of the tax revenue received in this town came from businesses. Multi-property owners. And out of
Secondary
town owners who we would most likely be second homeowners. Okay, 87% of the tax base comes from them. So when you're talking about the tax burden on the local people, it's 13%. When you say that you know, that's what's hurting us now, you know, the multi-million-dollar homes up in South Peak aren't hurting us now with the tax base. They're paying lots of taxes and demanding little services. And you said that the current structure is hurting us now, so I'm not sure what you meant by that, but that's when we're talking about the town's tax base, it's 13% of what we collect. And actually, that was 2 years ago.
I mean,
and I know it's less now.
That's all the reason why it changed, because we don't need to go there here. I'm just saying that it's a tough question. Everybody in this room probably paid more taxes this year than they did last year. And it wasn't just because of the budget. I mean, it was everything. Actually, it wasn't the budget. You don't pay more if you don't spend more. So I mean, taxes are relevant. It's not about the.
But also,
it's really not about how much money you got coming in for tax base. It's about how much money you spend. You know?
right, and the $11 that you spend per thousand on your home, 5 of that comes to the town. Just also keep that in mind, because the other. Well, it's 5 more than you may want, but out of the $11.68 that is the whole town's tax rate, only $5.52 of that, I think, is coming to the town. So you also have to keep that into perspective, that your tax rate is not just built solely on the town's operating budget. It's the school, it's the county, it's the state tax education. We're talking about, we're getting less than half that.
I mean, if I really had one thing I'd like to see the town put its effort into, it would really be driving up the wages within the town so people could afford to buy houses and do that too.
I'll remember that during budget committee season next year.
I'm fine with that.
With your right hand and swear
If
to
you
it.
want, if you wanna make it fair within the whole town, not just the town employee. You know.
Well, I only have control over.
That
some.
I'm right, I understand that, but that's truly what this town needs. Big influx, big shot in the arm for all the employees that work here, waitresses, bartenders, stuff like that. They do get paid, but they don't get paid.
Right. Well, but I also think that's the part of what we're trying to grasp is Lincoln is a special community. Lincoln does have a very solid core. I mean, I've only been here for a few years, but like the local community in Lincoln is a gem. They care about each other. They care about things. They care about keeping the community alive. That is diminishing. And maybe this is an opportunity to stoke that flame again.
Jim,
Jim?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up just a couple of names one more time. if I can. I'm gonna hate to see Longfellow buy that, fill his pocket full of money and leave town, just like Santa Corporation did in the eighties. And leave the town with all the problems, the penny problems that they've left behind and don't care. They've got their pocket full of money and gone out of town. So that's all Saturday did. I know I lived through it. I did a lot for Santa Corporation. Some of it I didn't get paid for. He got paid. Longfellow's gonna do the same.
Good Centec. Centec, same thing.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope this has been helpful. I hope
Hey,
that,
OJ,
oh, yep, who's that?
this is Taylor. Sorry, I've been listening to this for 2 hours and I can't really figure out how to use my thing, microphone and all that. So, hey, I just wanted to, have you talked to any of these local developers, the ones that, that are got skin in the game, or the ones that Jamesy's talking about? Have you guys spoke to any of the local developers on if they have interest in this?
We have not.
Okay.
Taylor, did any of the locals put any offers in, do you know?
I don't know. I'm not in the real estate. I'm not in the investment. I'm
I
not.
don't know.
I was just curious because they, when you spoke of the one developer might build the bridge, or they might do some infrastructure to get a deal on the lots. I didn't know if you had some people that you had spoken to, or if it might be worth your while to speak to them, or if they're, I don't know, Jack, are there developers that have put offers in?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, all we heard was that there was one offer that was above, and this came directly from the Clarks.
Yep.
Their agent.
Yeah,
That's all, their agent. That's all I know. I don't know who that was. Well, it could have been a local. I honestly don't know.
And I guess that's my thing. If it might be worth it for you to reach out if you can find out. I don't know how all the rules work on what you can find out for information, but you might have and I know from what I'm hearing in this meeting for the past 2 hours that developers are bad. Developers are just going to leave the town high and dry. Developers this, developers that. It might be in your best interest if the other offer is a developer, that you reach out to them and maybe they're willing to work with you. Maybe their plan is good for your plan. I don't know. I just think that without reaching out, you don't know. I mean, it might be something that you guys say, well, they got a perfect plan. They're willing to stick to it. They've always been good, or, oh no, these guys haven't been good, it might just be something that you want to entertain of at least talking to them. And I'm not telling you what way to go and I'm a taxpayer in Lincoln, but I'm not a resident. So, I don't have a vote, but it just seems like there's no answers. There's bad developer, bad developer, bad developer. where there might be a good developer that has the same thought in their mind that you guys have in your mind.
And that's a really good point. I think timing wise, the town would be in a better position to discuss this with developers after the town meeting vote, because I'm assuming, and I, like Jack, I don't know, but I'm assuming that some of the other developers in town are either interested or have already made offers in this property, and I'm not sure that they would be motivated to deal with us and give us, you know, incentive for the townspeople to vote yes, because this developer is gonna partner with us, when in fact, they'd rather own it themselves and do it the hell they want. So I think timing wise, the negotiating, we'd be in a weaker negotiating position right now than we would the day after town meeting.
And we also want to make sure that we err on the side of caution and that whatever we do is a very public, open, transparent, fair process. So we couldn't just reach out to one developer and say, hey, what do you think about this product? You know, we would have to make it a very open, transparent, right?
And the other part of that, Taylor, is you know, it could be that the entity that constructs that expensive bridge does so with some of the infrastructure money that's available through matching grants. And maybe the federal government pays a portion of it and that developer pays a portion of it. But that would have to be a nonprofit type developer. So that may be the best route for step one and get that bridge built with some federal money.
And Taylor, you know, if it passes and the town controls it, and the town was going to meet with developers, we could put in restrictions as far as whom they hire in some cases. In other words, we could say we want 10% of the labor force to be local labor force. We could say that just like many contracts that I've worked with, we have a requirement for WBEs, woman-owned business, minority-owned business. We could say we want local-owned businesses to do X, Y, Z as far as site work or carpentry. We could do that. So, you know, we, the town, become masters of our own destiny here. If we control this land, we can put certain restrictions, covenants on certain parcels and get, you know, the affordability factor in there, get the rental housing in there, maybe get some commercial. Again, you know, it remains to be seen exactly what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Thank you.
Now, since you brought up the nonprofit, I'm gonna put my snowmobile club, because I'm a active member in the snowmobile club, and I want to go back to what OJ said in the beginning, that there's a snowmobile trail that runs through that property, approximately a mile. In the beginning, you said, OJ, that if some other developer buys it, the town is responsible for a trail reroute?
No, I didn't.
That's what I heard too.
No, the town doesn't have to do it. I'm saying if we wanted to keep that existing trail, and a developer said no, I'm saying that someone would have to reroute that, and it's not a town responsibility to do that.
Okay. Then I misunderstood you, because I thought I was wondering what you were, because the towns have never been involved in a snowmobile club trail or making sure this trail happened. So I was a little confused by that. I just wanted to make sure that I was on the same page, because if you're willing, I'll take you up on the offer on a whole bunch of
No, I'm thank you for bringing that up, because if I didn't say that correctly, that was not my intention. We don't have to do it, and I don't think we would do it. Other than participating in helping it happen. But certainly would be on your shoulders to do that, or.
Okay, and if the town does buy that, would you guarantee us a trail, whether it be in the same location or not the same location? Would the town, the three of you and the town manager or whoever's makes the decisions, would you guarantee us a snowmobile trail through that property?
We haven't discussed this as a board, but I'll tell you right now, So long as you allow mountain bikes on there, my vote is 100% yes.
Okay.
And you've got some heavy equipment that might grade some trails if we needed it, right? Volunteer?
I don't know how much volunteer we got here, Jack. If you guys are willing to spend $4 million, it sounds like you got some money to pay me.
Good point.
Yeah,
So-
and those are my only concerns. I mean, I think that I myself, like I said, I'm a taxpayer, not a resident, not a voting person. I have interest in the development due to my business, but I listened to this whole meeting and there's a lot of bashing going on of developers when I don't know the Saturdays. I don't know the 1976 when they came from Canada and did all that stuff days. But I can tell you right now, I think you guys have some good developers, younger developers, people that have interest in the community. So I don't think that you should really bash the developer. And you guys, you're entitled to your opinions. I'm entitled to mine. That is only my opinion. So I just sat here and listened to all this and I couldn't help myself but to chime. Sorry, I barged in because I'm not real good with the Zoom stuff, but I appreciate the time you gave me to talk and hopefully my thoughts will be considered.
And thanks for your thoughts. I mean, I would agree with you totally on the developer comments you made. I don't think you heard the Board of Selectmen bash the comments of the developers. And again, we have these hearings so people can speak their opinions and, you know, some people, you know, agree with you, some people don't, and they have the right to say that.
Yep.
And that, you know, that's how it was. I mean, I've recently-ish finished 2 major lawsuits with previous developers that were just nasty. And you know, I've come to a real good appreciation for some of the developers we currently have who have replaced some of the difficult things we've been through. So I agree with you.
And
Did you
hey,
wanna say-
Jack, if you want to talk about donations and we're going to match them, you get your wallet out, okay?
There you go.
My pocket's empty. But
Go ahead.
Kim Halloran, I'm a landowner, taxpayer here. I think that the important thing to take away is that whoever owns this land then can do with it what they want to do with it. So whether it be a developer, a private citizen who buys a conservation, or the town who either develops part of it, maybe saves part of it for conservation or whatever that is, but whoever owns that land can then do whatever they want with it within the boundaries of the zoning. So that's really important to know. The other thing is, this is one of the largest land parcels, I believe, left in Lincoln available to do something with. So, you know, if we want to try and constrain some of the building that's going on in town, this is really one of the only opportunities we have to do that. You know, at some point, we probably will have to put in a new super plan. I mean, that's just the way things go. You know, we're blessed that we have such a strong community of, you know, the second home owners that do float a lot of our costs, you know, and don't take the resources. So we do have that, which is unusual and unique. And we do have a strong community within town, within the residents itself. So it is a unique opportunity to be able to obtain this parcel.
Thank you.
in case you're interested, Kim, there is another parcel of 600 acres for 9 million, if you want us to buy that. Go.
Sure.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm going to close the public hearing. We have a couple more things on our agenda to do, and it's a public meeting. You're welcome to stay, but thank you for coming to the hearing.
I don't have any.
Did you want to take a 2-minute break or? I don't have anything. The only thing I was gonna just say is that we had a interesting and productive meeting tonight with, Vermont Rail.
Yes.
We had that meeting.
This was the trucking company that wanted.
So, long story short, there's a possibility that we might have some sort of working arrangement with them. But I wanted to see it on paper visually, like, you know, what do they need of the solid waste facility? What do they need, if anything, of the riverfront park area? What they're gonna use on the DOT, is Department of Transportation, land. So they have some homework to do and things, and
Yeah.
just in discussion stage.
You know, I'd be concerned about traffic, to be very honest with you, in that area, particularly if you develop it as a park. Kids walking, taking kayaks, biking there, you know, I mean, again, all of
We,
these.
we had that.
We had the discussion.
And the thought is, as they get off the interstate, they drive by McDonald's and they pull in Recycle Road. Any entrance or exit is gonna be through there. Okay, so as you get down Recycle Road, where it goes down to the dump, there might be a turn that they take.
That
That's,
follows
that's
the
why,
tracks.
that's why we wanted to see this on the map.
And who would build it?
They would.
Yes.
It wouldn't cost us anything. The only thing that our input, the only financial input that we would have, and not even really financial input, is that they might need a municipality to help them apply for grants because of our status as a municipality.
Right.
But we wouldn't be ponying up any money to help support their endeavor.
And,
When you apply for a grant, that you know, we take 10% for the cost of filing the grant, so, you know, the town.
Well, and they brought their own grant administrator with them, who said that she might be able to find grants that helps with the park and their. And the transload facility together
Okay.
or separately.
right, they had been working with NCIC.
Yeah.
Who now has a different name because
New
they.
Hampshire Community Fund, they were bought by New Hampshire Community.
Yeah,
Fund. Yeah. They acquired that.
merged or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if nonprofits, I don't know how
Yeah.
they merged, but then now the community, so.
Yeah. And we addressed the traffic and, you know, from what they told us, it would be,
We are,
no,
No, we're still on, I mean, Tammy, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay,
it would be, it would be a very minimum impact travel wise. They say that they have, it would be a couple times a month, sporadically throughout the months. They have pickup and drop off days and times. It wouldn't be steady traffic 5 days a week or 7 days a week from 8 to 4. It would be like on this Wednesday, we have trucks coming in and they're gonna drop stuff off. And on Thursday, we have trucks coming out because they're bringing, so it would be from what they're. But from what they're expressing to us is that it would be, traffic would be minimal.
I mean, one of the things, and again, folks, it sounds like you've covered all my questions. One of the things we could request,
Joe,
do it on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When the dump is closed.
Well, and they also said they would do it, you know, at late at night or early in the morning. They would work with us.
right,
for
and they
hours
would
covered.
avoid, like, we could say, like, okay, Highland Games, we could actually. Most weekends doesn't sound like to do it,
No.
midweek project, right, but even, like, we could say, okay, February vacation week. No rides.
Yeah.
Okay. But we could schedule.
We
Yeah.
could, yeah, they said that they would work with us, and they also said that like, even to begin, we asked them to put it on paper, like OJ said, because we wanted to see like a bird's eye view of what they were, but they were saying even that they could do. Just a very small gravel parking area that's mostly on DOTs and maybe just a little bit on our land, like they're not looking for a. They're not looking for a large space or to construct a large facility. It's more of a, I guess, stopping, yeah, drop off and pick up zone.
And one of their concerns was, they didn't want a space so restricted that they would have to back trucks into or out of. In other words, they don't want one road in and then you have to back an 18-wheeler down.
Right, yeah, no,
No, it makes no sense.
But with the way the solid waste facility is set up,
their current configuration, it's
they could go around and then, of course, they would have to build stuff, but could access the rail from there.
Again, still very initial, but at least we have a better understanding of what they're looking for in that area and I did, Jesse, the gentleman, one of the gentlemen that was here, he reached out to me today.
Oh, good.
I sent him the plans for Riverfront Park, so they know what we are proposing and where we are proposing things. They had talked about potentially using Paper Mill Drive, and I said, I think that's out of the question. They're gonna put something on paper and we'll share it when we receive it.
Yeah, no, it was more than I think it's not feasible. It was like, it's not
It's,
feasible.
yeah.
But people
Well, and
know.
then even today, he asked if they could just use the first entrance of Paper Mill, and I said, that is essentially, I said, that's a very narrow, tight turn. It's the exit for the Citizens Bank drive-through. I said, there's a small island between the two kind of plazas, right before you get into the, I just said, I don't see that being a feasible access point. So.
Tammy's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, something.
Is it okay to talk right now?
Do you have anything else to report?
No, I don't have anything else, no,
Okay,
more to come.
I don't have anything. All right, then I'll open up for public participation. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, I just, I had a question. That maybe this isn't the appropriate room, maybe I should wait till the next planning board meeting, but. At the planning board meeting, I had asked the board, but you responded about, has there been, complete environmental impact study done for the proposed development up on Mansion Hill? And nobody knew the answer, and then you asked the developer, not the developer. Yes, somebody anyways, and they said no impact study had been done. And then you looked around at the board and nobody had asked for one. So you never said, or the board, when I say you, I'm talking about the whole board, so please. No, not targeting you, but at the end, as I was heading out the door, I know Danielle had said something to you and you said there's not gonna be any impact study done. I don't understand why there wasn't gonna be an impact study done, because it's gonna be a huge impact, in my opinion, on the traffic itself. And just the environment and all the problems that we've had since Forest Ridge has gone in with the houses on Pollard Road. Deb Moody's house, Paul Odom's former house, Lincoln Signs house, the town daycare. So I think once that root system's out, knowing it is a lot of wetlands up there, as is some of Clark's property, it's just going to make so many more problems in the future. So if there was an impact study, maybe that could be alleviated, and then there wouldn't be litigation in the future because it wasn't done. So I'm just asking, what was the reason for not wanting the developer to do an impact study?
Well, an environmental impact study is a very broad scope study that looks at many different factors. And I think what we talked about at that meeting was there was talk of a traffic study, and he was sending his desktop
Traffic data, yes.
data around, and that was for the board to look at to see if we wanted any further traffic study. But we wanted to look at that, which we didn't get until after that meeting. So the traffic was addressed and will continue to be. And then, Timmy, there was a long discussion and I asked tons of questions about the drainage, the wetlands, the size of the houses that were being proposed, and whether that would be adhered to through building restrictions.
Right.
And the size of the disturbed area around the house, and whether that would be just part of the deed restrictions or homeowners association rules, and the possibility of protecting the non-disturbed areas per their map, with at least partially with easements across the steep section and the wetland section. So we said no to this broad scope study and said that we really wanted to look at the drainage. And they were gonna move one of the retention ponds. And they were going to look at options for easements for the wetlands. There was a couple of other things that, and they have to get this all done through, the alteration of terrain.
I was gonna say, they have to do an alteration of terrain, a
and-
wetlands, a.
And Ray, our time, was that?
I heard Greg. When you were talking, I
Okay,
heard. what Ray
but
said.
he's gonna look at and review all of those plans that they're submitting for the alteration of terrain permit to make sure they fit our stormwater management ordinance, which says that the amount of water that flows off that property right now can't increase after they build all the houses, all the roads, all the lawns, all the stuff, it can't increase. Okay, and if we do things like easements for the steep slopes, homeowners association rules for the disturbed areas, stuff like that, that goes a lot further towards strengthening the control of that property in the future. Because you know as well as I, is like, if you're, you know, especially one of those long skinny properties, okay, and it goes across wetlands, well, I wanna put my, you know, motorcycle shed down there, well, I'm just gonna fill it a bit. Well, the town then has the right to go in and say, no, take that down and restore the wetlands, because it's in the, you know, planning board minute or a decision, conditions of approval, and it's in probably your homeowners association thing. Okay, so it not only controls the planning process, it controls the enforcement process after the fact. I thought a lot of headway was made on that, you know, no final decisions, but some really good discussion amongst the board, the developer, and Ray on those issues.
There was, but I just needed clarification on why you didn't want one, because if I wanted to build something and I really, really wanted it, I might smudge on some things as a developer versus somebody not in with the developer individually did the impact study. So I just wanted clarification, because people have ways of looking out for themselves and not being so honest. So I just have a big issue.
Well, I guess think of it this way. There will be an environmental impact study done, but only limited to drainage or wetlands or water runoff, because that's what our stormwater ordinance does. And that's gonna be Ray's job to make sure that any smudging, and again, you know, one of the reasons that some of the projects take so long for a developer to get through is Ray picks up on a lot of minor details.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes, you know, the developer or the other engineer, right, rolls their eyes, but
He's a stickler for the rules.
he's a stickler for the rules and he's watching out for the town.
I'm not here, you know, to bust anybody's chops. I just wanted clarification for myself. I mean, there was so much information going on. It's like my head spinning by the time I left. It's like, well, you guys are all, not all of you, but you know, most of you are here right now. Tammy's here for input as well. I just figured I'd ask because that's not my field, but I just feel the people at Mansion Hill would be more protected if there was an environmental impact study done by somebody other than the proposed developers, or homeowners. You know, or them hiring somebody, not just by going on the report right now, that's what I'm saying.
Right. And, you know, I guess I'm glad you brought this up here, than just let it linger or social media, because, you know, basically the stormwater plan design and our review of that through our engineer is that impact study you're looking for. Now, it doesn't take into account, you know, the spotted owls that might be up there, or the Indian buried remains that might be up there, or some other environmental issues, but it looks at the two big things that we're talking about.
But the AOT will look at certain environment, the EPA stuff, we'll look at certain
We'll look at
endangered
that.
species.
Yeah.
Things, indigenous species, the AOT will, but not.
But the town's
Right.
looking at the traffic and the wetland, not wetlands, but the
Stormwater runoff.
stormwater, which includes the wetlands.
So is there absolutely no other option for roadways in and out of that property?
That's, again,
You can't
planning board.
connect on to like Maple Street Extension from there? Does that abut it? That you could go on to Maple Street Extension or possibly where the condo associations usually pay fees, dues and all that stuff, that they could offer certain amount of maintenance fees or something for tapping into their road to go out through Forest Ridge? Or if the town gets
Bring one on
campus
the campus road.
property, just go out that way, not bringing in more cluster on Pollard Road that there already is.
Well, there's no access other than, but it's 3 different town roads about that, lead to that property.
Yeah.
All right, there's no other entrances or exits, but there's 3 of them that exist.
Right.
You know, we can't make someone buy land to make a different
No, I
path somewhere.
totally understand that, but I just didn't know if it abutted Maple Street Extension, which I believe the road part, correct me if I'm wrong, is town road. If that's the case, couldn't they have that as an outlet?
It doesn't abut their property.
I'm saying if it does, I haven't,
Oh, yeah,
you
no,
know,
no, there's property in between, because originally that land abutted Pollard Road.
Right.
Um,
and Gary's capstone, Tammy said.
right, next to Lincoln Signs old house.
Yeah.
But that wasn't part of the sale, that was a separate lot, and
Right.
that wasn't, Gary either kept that or did something
And
else with
they
it.
have no intentions of selling that?
I don't know what their intentions are. It's private property, they can do whatever the hell they want with it.
Well, I'll tell you that, when I wanna develop across the brook, it's my property, I'll do whatever the hell I want with it.
When you come to the planning board.
I'm not looking to do anything right now. Like I said, I like my poison ivy fence up there. Yeah, I just wanted clarification, and I just didn't wanna open up a can of worms and everybody start.
I'd rather you ask them here, just like that, and give us a chance to answer the question before it gets blown out of proportion by conjecture.
But, yeah, it's as far as, you know, like the water and stuff, I know since Forest Ridge has gone in, it has caused a lot, and the town did take care of it, a good part of it, not all of it. When Butch was here, you know, I had said how with the house abutting my end cabin there in between the school property was put in, they closed off part of the roadway, so that's why Spencer Kelly had a lot of that water in his basement. And the town opened that back up. So I guess you guys didn't realize there was like another wing to the brook out there. So that has helped a great deal, but still, even behind the town gate, they have water, and I'm just concerned once that root system's all depleted up there. If they develop to the extent of proposing, you know, at least the root system helped absorb some of that groundwater. So I just have concerns, and I would really like to see it cut back. I'm not saying don't do it, I'd like to see it cut back, but that's up to the town to decide, not me. I'm just telling you my thoughts, and I just really think that the people that are up there are gonna be impacted in so many various ways. Like I say, I'm down at the foot of the hill. When the people were sitting here at the planning board meeting, none of them opened their mouth. I opened my mouth for them. And if they had to open their mouth, I think it would have shown you guys how serious they feel about this, but they're not representing themselves, and I'm not gonna do it for them all the time. But I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you clarifying for me, because I just couldn't understand why you said no, there was gonna be a bit of a tax study. So now that you clarified it, we feel better. So
Awesome.
I'll go home. One less thing on my mind tonight.
Okay, me too, thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Good night, Mary. All right, no public, non-public is needed.
Let's change.
Tammy, you wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Boy, all these meetings, you've never been so quiet.
It's hard to participate on Zoom like this. And I mean, if it were our bond the hearing was on, I would obviously be more vocal, but it's a petition warrant article. It doesn't, I like the dialogue that went on tonight, but it's not something I feel like I have to defend right now. Town meeting will be another story.
Right,
Right.
right,
8 o'clock.
all right. I wish we had a mute button for you all the time, but it would have been nice. I
Took the words out of my mouth.
I can't kick you either.
No, you can't.
A motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.